right? I mean, this is how I prefer to start a painting. Just really the locks in here, just very painterly. Emile Groupé, does that name ring a bell with anybody? No? Emile Groupé was an East Coast painter who was an incredible, look him up, G-R-U-P-P-E. He wrote 3 really important oil painting books, one called Brushwork and one called, I think, just On Painting. He had a protege named Charles Movalli, and you can see some of Movalli's work at James Reeser's gallery in Carmel. He just passed away a few years ago. But incredible harbor scenes, beautiful winter scenes, Gloucester type stuff. And he said, I would much prefer to see a very loose, expressive piece that is not well, maybe perfectly drawn, than a perfectly drawn, highly rendered piece. So drawing is important, and so is loose and impressionistic brushwork. This is how this place is making us feel, okay? And we can't, if we're photorealistic, we might as well just take a photo. We're painters, we can move things around however we want. I'll do this process until I feel comfortable with where things are. This is going to be my focal point up here. I think this area with this shadowed wave, and then this will be the wave body that hasn't broken yet, just like in the picture. I think that's going to be the interest, okay? Cool. Okay, enough of that. I want to make sure that I'm comfortable before I take the next step, because if I'm not confident with the painting design at this point, I'm going to have a little bit of trepidation or whatnot as I proceed, and that's the last thing you want as a painter, especially a plein air painter. You want to just attack the canvas with full confidence and know that you're starting from a solid base, okay? In my brain, I'm seeing that there's a nice, interesting design there. When I paint outside, I've got a 15-foot worn out area of grass. Because, again, if it's not working back here, it's not going to work up there. And if I come in, I open that gallery door, and I look at that painting, and I go, then I'm not going to have a compelling piece. So when I come back here, I can see it, pretend like I'm opening that door, and boom, I can scrub in a large area. Okay? This is all with one brush, and this is going to be, I'm probably not going to put this brush down the entire time. Again, just modifying the puddle of paint that I'm mixing creates interesting brushwork and allows the viewer a little more time to just go, wow, that's cool, that's not all the same. But again, darkest darks in these foreground rocks. Now I'm going to get back into this rock here, or these rocks here. So I don't want them to, especially with all this surf and wave dust in the air, that's atmosphere, I don't want them to be as dark as this. So I'm going to just touch my white. Normally I won't touch that white until I really have to, because white is going to chalk up my darks, right? So that's okay, because I'm moving back in space now. I'm going to just make a rock here. I've got this angle here. I'm just going to kind of see a bit of this angle here. So countering that angle, just to get more interest. These rock shapes will change. And when I'm painting rocks, I'm thinking of the facets. I was talking to Donna earlier about, it's hard to paint rocks so they look like potatoes. They do. It's terrible. But they do. They look like potatoes. And so you've got to have angles and edges on them. You've got to have hard edges. Like these could easily look like potatoes. Here and here. But because when I squint down, I see these hard angles. been able to create rocks instead of potatoes, right? That could be a potato still, but it's got a hard edge. All right? This was during the Carmelite Festival a few months ago. It was my last day. I love to paint big outside. To me, that's a pretty good size. Normally 12 by 16s are my size, but I was feeling pretty loose. And there was this incredible light, morning light, hitting this ice plant. It was this rusty orange ice plant. So that's what attracted me to that whole scene. And I just had to find a way to paint that ice plant. Okay, so I don't know if you can tell on the screen. Should we back this up a little, Pete?
A little bit.
Or, I'm sorry, Steve?
Yeah.
Back it up.
Back it up? I can do
Yeah.
it. Just a bit of lighter value. That's interesting to me. So this next guy's going to be in here. God, it comes all the way over, doesn't he? Such a fun way to paint. So much different than my mentor John Crump said, Scott, we were painting at the Golden Gate Bridge, and he just finished being very emotional. He'd never been out of New Zealand. He was 70 years old, and he was standing underneath the Golden Gate Bridge. I looked over at him and I said, John, are you okay? And he said, oh yeah, mate, I'm fine. He said, he said, maybe I'm missing Kay, his wife, but he said, I also think that because I've only seen this structure, and he's an engineer brain, he said, this is the Golden Gate Bridge. I've only seen it in movies. I've only seen it in pictures and on calendars, and I'm standing underneath this one. But later he came over after he collected himself, and he said, Scott, do you want to be a painterly painter, or do you want to be a sign painter? And I said, well, I want to be a painterly painter, duh. And he said, then stand back, open up your stance, and attack the canvas. And I said, oh. And I said, what's a sign painter? And he said, oh, sign painter is this. A. L. And I said, awful. So, you want to be a painterly painter, not a sign painter. So remember that. So yeah, allow your brush to do a lot of the work. And honor the brush stroke. Okay? This brush work is just suggesting. This is a suggesting that we're doing. We're not defining. We're trying to let the viewer have some ownership of what they see and what they feel. And if we spell it all out for them, they're not going to be very interested for very long. But when they have to make this rock into a rock, or that, I've had people say, oh, I love it. I love this painting, Scott. I looked 2 years after I got it from you, I realized there was a deer in the background. And I said, oh, yeah, no, it wasn't a deer. It's just that's what they saw. So, that's the stuff that and the land, if that value works, then we can rest assured that if we can get the value of the land and the horizon, the water, right, then we can go from the water to that rock, and from that rock to that, and that, to that, to that, and that. And it's all based on this initial assessment. And if that's not right, and we're basing all the others on that, then we're going to get into trouble. So, next time you're out, try starting with your sky and what touches your sky in your scene, and get those two colors and values just right. And then you can go from whatever that is to whatever's below it, whatever's over here, and whatever's going on, and then you'll find that your values are falling into place. Okay, so I'm going to do that. This isn't kind of the opposite of what I just said about the ocean being much lighter out here. On the Monterey Bay, when the light gets low, this gets very dark, the horizon. That's okay, because it's a very small piece of this, and I think all of this will make sense that this is the ocean and it's going to lay down. But if this were just ocean, I might change that a little bit to my artistic license to let that fall into that rule or that suggestion I was talking about. But let's just see if we get it. That's too dark. Okay, you can always put a test up there, right? And if it's not working, fix it. Take your time. Make it right down here. a little bit different, a little bit better, lighter. That's nice. You can really see the difference in value there. I just added white. I think that's going to work. So in this picture, this rock right here is below the horizon line. Maybe that works. I'm going to do that, but I also may in the end bring this rock up above this horizon line to break that line and to make again sort of that feeling of overlap. One big brush. I'm going to loosen that up with a little liquid. Do that one more time. Okay. I think that works. My horizon's not straight. Now, a couple things about the horizon. If I leave that horizon with a hard edge like that, my eye goes to it. And one of the things that I think is so fun about painting seascapes is to blur that horizon, and it just goes away in the distance, right? Lots of different ways you can do it. You can literally do it with your finger. You can do it with your brush. This is a way that I like to do it. It's just to take the corner, the edge of my brush, and just do some squiggles. I know it sounds very strange, but just some squiggles there. And then come over top of that with a clean brush. Then you just lose. Before you know it, the horizon's gone. Okay? Still a lump in my horizon. I'm a stickler for horizons being straight, or something as straight as you can get them. And level. See how hard that edge is there? See how you're looking there and not there now?
Yeah.
Again, that's like we talked about in the very beginning with those circles. So let's soften that edge too. And I'll do it a different way now. See how I'm wiping in between each brush stroke there? Got a little bit of dirt in that sky, be careful. Don't touch your canvas too much. Okay? I want to see, I mean, when we look at paintings, I want to see brush strokes, not fingerprints. Okay, that's probably close. Good enough. Okay, sweet. Now, I can compare all this now. This works, this works, this works. Now, what's below it? Oh, there's another wave back there. Oh, okay? All right. So, I'm going to paint the rest of this painting really fast. Holding the brush a little lighter now. Ooh, got some light coming in, nice. Wait till we put the lip foam, it's really gonna pop. I don't want to make any one thing too interesting, more interesting than the wave itself. Again, I want you to look here. So these are all suggestions and just, very painterly. I mean, that's the fun way to do it. Now, I just pumped that color up a little bit because I want to make this a little more punchy. And when I squint down at the scene, I'm looking at where's the lightest light on this face. And I'm going to say it's right here because that's facing the sky or the sun. And so I'm just going to sometimes that's all it takes, to give it a little bit of form. We're creating shapes, but now we can, with light and shadow, we can create form. And that's what separates people who are just getting started and haven't observed all of this great stuff going on outside. Oh yeah. Now I might have to come back and punch one or two more of these things if my eye isn't getting over here. Like we talked about, I can orchestrate which way your eye is going to go just by simply doing a few more intense. See, there's a little face here that I like. Yeah. Now as we get back here, it's going to get grayer. Again, this is going to be warmer, a little bit cooler, and cooler. So when we get way back in here, we're going to add a little bit of a cooler color. So I'm just going to grab some of this because it's here, and I'm going to bring it into here, or I'm going to bring a little of that into here. And it's still light, but this is much cooler than that now. See that? And again, look at how big this brush is. I mean, come on. And I'm going to make a small line. I'm just going to do a facet of the face. Now I've got this one going this way, this one going this way. Not great variety there, but this one's longer and more interesting. So I'm just going to make this one back here a little bit more of a swoopy. And then chop that right there for the heck of it. See what happens. That's too dramatic. So I can do a couple things. I can either come back with the dark that's next to it, or I can soften it or change its shape a little bit. We toppled that one. That's a rock. And I'm going to come back with what's behind it. That dark. It's pretty light. You guys doing okay?
Yep. Yes.
Anybody going to any parties tonight or anything? Saturday night?
This is my party.
This is it? I'm sorry. So just cooled that off a little bit. I think that cooling is a little bit better. Haven't changed the value too much. Maybe a little bit, but this rock is a little more substantial. I need to get in shape. I'm going on a 12-mile hike in 1 week. In the Eastern Sierra, starting out at 7,000 feet, going up to 10,000 feet. And I'm not ready.
Then you'll wish you were painting.
Yeah, well, we are. It's really actually not as bad as it sounds because I don't have to carry a heavy pack. We have a mule train.
That's cool.
It's really cool. There's 7 of us painters, and I got invited to go on this trip about 6 years ago, and it was just an honor to be with these guys. And yeah, so you just put all your gear down, all your painting gear, all your boxes of panels, and the cowboys load them up on the mules, and they take off. And actually, we take off, and then they come later. And there's like a string of 20 mules and a couple horses and the cowboy. Then you just wind up the grand up into Adiza Lake and Garnet Lake, and just spectacular Edgar Payne country, just magnificent. It's really cool. We spend a week up there just painting from sunrise to sunset. Just painting. Some stuff happening over here I need to kind of establish. A few.
Pictures of them the next day. I said, well, did you camp out? Or he said, no, it's all within driving distance of home. Views, yeah. Oh. That was Samantha. She started high school.
Just suggesting some facets back there. That's not where I want you to look.
I know.
Obviously, this is the height. And now we have lit foam, shadowed foam. And so that in your brain defines that space. Okay. The other thing is these waves are casting a shadow on the foam in front of them a little bit. If this was a lower light, you'd see that a lot stronger. So be aware of, you don't want to necessarily bring your lit foam right to the base of that shadow foam because it's casting a shadow on that. A bit strong. Do you see that being a bit strong to the rest of the thing when you squint down? Not sure about that. So all I have to do is come back with some of that wave color. I love the brush work, but I want to just make it so it's not so strong. And maybe that's all I had.
Yeah.
Yep. Just take it away a little bit. Again, it's pretty strong here. And that's a pretty straight line, so I'm just going to soften. Worth the effort, I think, because in the end, if you get it again, yeah, you get happy to just get it where you had before, right?
Yeah.
So just be careful with Again, this is just edge play. I mean, this is really, I mean, you know, you could go crazy here, but we're just trying to create a little bit of movement and softness.
Yes. I can see now that I worked too hard. Bigger brush, more paint, not big pieces. Oh, look at that, I like that.
I'm going to cut in behind this leaf here in a second.
Good move over the board.
This is really popping yellow here in this picture. It's not as yellow up front, but it is still too much yellow. So I'm going to knock it down a little bit.
Knock it down.
There's a lot of color in foam though.
Beautiful color in foam. I love foam and light. It's right in front of you. If you're confused, look at your scene. Watch your wave break again.
Is it easy to paint from a reference or from life down there?
I like painting when I'm down there.
So you do it all. It just seems so overwhelming. It's so huge.
Well, that's what I was trying to talk about with simplification and just really squinting down. And that was probably the only advice I gave, because it's really the only advice you need.
Yeah.
Is when you squint down those darks, all these rocks become one. This rock, which is here, it's got 15 different faces, but if you squint down hard, it's a dark, and a light in the middle.
Huge shapes.
You know, it's just editing and knowing that you don't need it all, and not being afraid to get rid of it. Wow, that's not going to do good.
He does.
I mean, for a demo, I'm really happy with this. Especially in the background,
Good for us.
your waves are going to be a lot less defined, very soft edges. Okay, let's get into the nitty-gritty. Let's see where we go. I will promise. Give me 7 minutes.
I got my timer going.
And that's when somebody said, "How do you know when you're done?" You almost need to kind of have a buddy say, "Stop."
Well, this is nice. Great.
Just you can say I just broke that foreground rock away from the background rock just by putting that
Yeah.
separation in. Same thing. I can change directions here. I don't know about you, but sometimes when I have these edges that aren't covered yet, it's a bit of a distraction. So don't be afraid to just come in. You know, that's pretty much going to be behind the frame anyway. So don't be afraid to just come in and cover that up, and then that allows your eye to see it. Less distraction.
Yeah, it does. Draws your eye back.
So interestingly enough, and this is again just sort of I guess a more advanced principle, is that when the foam here is the facets of the foam angle is kind of like this. So it's getting blue, but it's not going to get as much blue as foam that's flat in shadow. Okay? Again, we're talking about form. So this is going to be bluer and probably lighter. Then this is going to be less blue because it's getting something else from the mountain or whatever. So I'm going to just, in front of this wave, there's going to be cast shadow because the wave's in front of it, but the shadow itself is going to have, I hope, a bit more blue and a little bit lighter. You should be able to see it right there.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I would work on this a little bit more, but I think we're close enough.
It's wonderful.
Again, at the end, reestablish your darkest dark, your lightest light, your most intense color, your hardest edge and your softest edge, if you need the eye to move. But I feel like we're getting the eye over here, and I feel like the drawing is close. And I feel like there's enough going on. I'm not super excited about this dark line up here. So even though that's in the scene, I'm just going to break that background line a little bit more. A little more variety to that edge there, okay? There could be another, rock that's making this splash. Let's just get rid of some of that similarity. Does that make sense?
Yep. It's beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yoo-hoo!
I think we got a minutes worth.
Oh, gosh. The 2 coffees that I had?
That's it, give them 2 coffees.
One thing I will say about what I just did is I just kind of connected that, which is fine. But when you have something like this, a dark, another dark, and another dark, it's not real evident in this, but be careful that you don't create a wall or a fence in the foreground. It's hard for your eye. You don't want to make it difficult to get into the composition. So I don't think this is too big a deal, but if I wanted to, I could just break this a little bit, or, you can kind of come in here, So again, just, looking at that is potentially something that you might be aware of.
Awesome.
Okay?
Wow.
Yeah.